the legend and the real woman that Harriet Tubman was is such a rich, rich story. But why did you decide to do this? I mean, this is literally, I mean, we've joked about it, but it's a tub talk. And it really, I mean, this is it. This is abolitionism 101. Either you're in or you're out. So where did the idea of doing this come from, and why?
I mean, I think part of it is we do so much research, and our problem is we find so many great things. And as we read about Harriet and started to understand her, we all know she's a superhero. It's about understanding her as a person and realizing that we all have within us to become Harriet. I mean, the John story was the thing that got me, the fact that she went back to get her husband, and he wouldn't go back with her. And then she persisted, and then she saved hundreds of people. It's just amazing what she could have done. So we started collecting all this information, and Misha found out that she did these speeches, that they talked her into talking. And of course, like Harriet, like Aisha, she excelled at it. And
she literally, they literally went on fundraising tours.
Yeah, and did exactly that. And so we just researched speeches and said, what would Harriet say to America right now?
We talked about it when we discovered this thing that she was kind of giving these talks. We were just like, oh my God, that's it. Like, how do you tell the story of Harriet Tubman without having to do the entire story in flashbacks? We've seen that a million times. And we set this challenge for ourselves. And then, of course, we kept being like, okay, we're going to write that script. We're going to write that script. We're going to do that. It's 45 pages. We got to write that. And Aisha kept being like, so that script, when am I going to get that? And we were just, this season we tried to push the bar so much that we were pushing the bar so much by the time it was like a week out, we were like, oh, we got to write that script. And then we started writing it, and I think we got about halfway through it, and then we went, we got to get this to Aisha, oh my gosh. And so it was that, though. I think, again, in the same way that Aisha talks about Harriet kind of channeling through her, I think the same thing in the writing. It just came so quickly.
Because the writing is beautiful, insightful, and so poignant. And I don't just mean that line at the end, which is obvious, but there is so many. When Harriet talks, as Joe said, about going to her husband, I was so struck the first time I saw that opening shot. I guess I had never thought about it, but of course it absolutely makes sense of the scars that Harriet Tubman would literally carry on her back.
And for me, that's really what it started with. I think I called you one day and I was like, Harriet has whip marks on her back. Like this strong icon we have, it just never occurred to me that those two images went together, that she is us. She was a person who was enslaved, who rose above it, who rose above it, who rose above it. And I think that image was the start of it, and we were like, we talked a lot about that too.
And just collaborating. I mean, we had a script where we had blue type for what were Harriet's words. So, I get to collaborate with this genius, but we also get to collaborate with a great American hero. And we gave Anthony and Aisha a script that had, these are her words exactly. And it was just so awesome to stand on the shoulders of this giant and collaborate with history.
The question that you ask yourself, how do you top the last season? Everyone has that question of, season 1 was amazing, we loved it. Now we need to elevate season 2, because when you do series, you're like,
well, I have to say, Anthony, one thing you do to top season 1 of Underground is you add Harriet Tubman.
Yeah.
That takes it up another level.
Well, obviously, naturally. But it was the idea of getting into this and everyone really kind of surrendering and letting go of whatever anxiety and fear that we had. And once we all, I think, got to that space and connected and prayed a lot and hugged a lot and cried a lot, once we got over all of those things, we were ready to just champion it and get in there and do it. And it was just really beautiful to just soar high and fly far and wide and just have these, daring moments of just not knowing, where we're going and taking those risks and just trusting. And that was the awesome thing behind it. And working with Ish was one that, we've been in the paint for a while, like since True Blood. And just continuing to want to work together and to do great material together.
And you guys do Shots Fired, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, that's as one of the people this season, you literally have been doing double time.
Yeah, and grateful for it, grateful for the opportunity to do so. I'm certainly grateful that I was able to do so with Anthony, and that sort of was where the seed was planted for Harriet and for me to, you know, join this incredible cast and company to do this. It certainly has been an amazing, amazing journey to this point. And, you know, when you talk about just facing those fears and looking away from it, you know, very quickly. I mean, just thinking about the company that I was entering, you know, Journey was one of the first people that walked over to my trailer on day one when I got there, and she wobbled over all 7 months.
Wobble?
Oh, she strongly wobbled. She stepped firmly. You know, all 7 months pregnant of her, you know, and I remember looking at her with such awe, you know, because she had such a fire in her eyes to make sure.
And that's something people should know. Season 2, Journey was pregnant. I mean, you guys
real.
fixed around that and shut around. So some of those scenes, how many, you guys, most of you have seen all of the season so far, right? So you know that, I think it's episode 3 where you're basically in the mud.
Yeah. All of episodes.
Yeah. Pregnant. In the mud.
Precisely, you know, and like I was saying, she had this fire in her eyes and determination that there was nothing that was going to stop her from pouring the fullness of herself and her unborn child into making sure that this story was told, you know, and so that bar was already set so high, you know, and then, you know, knowing one of the most beautiful pieces of cinematography that I watched this season was Amira, you know, jumping into that water. I was like, you can't make suicide look beautiful. That's what you can't. You know, and I text her and I let her know, and to find out the backstory of how deathly afraid of like water, and she didn't know how to swim. She had to learn to swim, and so
I still have the scars.
Yeah, you know, here was Misha and Joe writing these storylines that pushed us as human beings to the edge of ourselves. You know, it forced us to sort of encounter some of the things that we could possibly be most afraid of. I mean, you couldn't, I don't know an expectant mother who would be like, yeah, sure, bury me, yeah. You know, people are so, they take such precaution, you know.
Unless their name is Journey Smollett.
Unless their name is Journey Smollett, and unless you are a part of the underground.